All About Steam, Episode 16, the Union Pacific 4000 class. And if you see right here, we have Big Boy number 4014. This is completely by chance. This was not intentional. I did not plan this or anything. I just loaded in, and we have Big Boy 4014. So that's already special enough as it is. So hello everyone. I am your host today. I'm Daniel. So, I hope you all enjoy this episode. It's a very, very largely popular locomotive. Alright, the Union Pacific Big Boy is a type of simple articulated 4884 steam locomotive manufactured by the American Locomotive Company, or more commonly known as ALCO, between 1941 and 1944, and operated in the Union Pacific Railroad in revenue service until 1962. 25 Big Boy locomotives were built to haul freight over the Wasatch Mountains between Ogden, Utah, and Green River, Wyoming. In the late 1940s, they were reassigned to Cheyenne, Wyoming, where they hauled freight over the Sherman Hill to Laramie, Wyoming. They were the only locomotives to use a 4884 wheel arrangement, 4 leading truck for stability entering curves, 2 sets of 8 driving wheels, and 4 trailing trucks to support the large firebox. Today, 8 Big Boys survive, with most on static display at museums across the country. One of them, number 4014, was reacquired by the Union Pacific and rebuilt into operating condition in 2019, regaining the title as the largest and most powerful operating steam locomotive in the world. In 1936, there we go. I'll also do this for y'all, because I know it's annoying. Full thing. Anyways. 1936, the Union Pacific introduced the Challenger type 4664 locomotives on its main line over the Wasatch Range between Green River and Ogden. For most of the route, the maximum grade is a 0.82% in either direction, but the climb eastward towards Ogden into the Wasatch Range reached 1.14%, hauling a 3,600 short-ton freight train demanded double heading and helper operations, which slowed service. So Union Pacific decided to design a new locomotive that could handle the run by itself, faster and more powerful than the compound 2880s that UP tried after World War I. Able to pull trains at a sustained speed of 60 miles an hour, or 100 kilometers an hour, once past mountain grades. A Union Pacific design team led by Otto Jabelman, the head of research and mechanical standards section of the Union Pacific's mechanical department, worked with ALCO, the American Locomotive Company, to re-examine their Challenger locomotives. The team found that the railroad's goals could be achieved by enlarging the Challenger's firebox to around 235 by 96 inches, 5.97 meters by 2.44 meters, about 150 square feet, or 14 meters squared, increasing boiler pressure to 300 psi, adding 4 driving wheels, and reducing the size of the driving wheels from 69 to 68 inch, 1,753 to 1,727 millimeters. The new locomotive was carefully designed not to exceed an axle loading of 67,800 pounds, or 330,800 kilograms. Achieved the maximum possible starting effort with a factor of adhesion of 4.0. It was designed to travel smoothly and safely at 80 miles an hour. To achieve these new engineering goals, Challenger locomotives was comprehensively redesigned from first principles. Apparently we're speeding now because we're still in yard speeds. Oh well. Wrote locomotive historian Tom Morrison. The overall design and simplified some aspects of previous locomotive designs and added complexity elsewhere. Compounding, booster, and feed water heaters were eliminated, as were Baker valve gear and limited cutoff, but the proliferation of valves and gauges on the backhand showed that running a big boy was altogether a more complicated and demanding task for the crew than running previous existing locomotives, Morrison wrote. The 484 class series, originally rumored to be called the Wasatch after the Wasatch Mountains, acquired its nickname after an unknown ALCO worker scrawled Big Boy in chalk on the front of number 4000, then under construction as the first of its class. The big boys were articulated like the Mallet locomotive design, or the real name compound articulated, though lacking the compounding of the Mallet. They were built with a wide margin of reliability and safety, operated normally well below 60 miles per hour in freight service. Peak horsepower was reached at around 41 miles an hour. Maximum drawbar pull was measured in 1943 tests of 138,200 pounds per feet, 615,000 newtons, while starting a train. The Big Boy was the longest locomotive body of any reciprocating steam locomotive, longer than 2 buses. It was the second heaviest steam locomotive ever built, only behind the Duluth, Mesabi, and Iron Range's 2884 Yellowstone locomotive. Together, the 772,250-pound engine and 436,500-pound tender outweighed a Boeing 747. There is some speculation that the first class of Chesapeake, Ohio 2666 Allegheny locomotives built by the Lima Locomotive Works in 1941 may have weighed as much as 778,200 pounds, exceeding the big boys, but subsequent re-weights of early production H8s under close scrutiny by the builder and the railroad found them to be less than 772,250 pounds. The big boy locomotives had large grates to burn low-quality bituminous coal supplied by the Union Pacific-owned mines in Wyoming. Coal was carried from the tender to the firebox using a stoker motor, a steam engine driving an auger. As an experiment, number 4005 was converted to burn oil in 1946. Unlike similar effort to the Challengers, the conversion failed due to an uneven heating in the big boy's large single-burner firebox. The locomotive was converted back to oil firing in 1948. By contrast, number 4014 was successfully converted to oil during its restoration. Another short-term experiment experiment was fitting of smoke deflectors on locomotive 4019, similar to those found on the railroad's FEF series, as well as some of the Challengers. These were removed later, as the big boy's nozzle and blower and the smoke box could blow smoke high enough to keep the engineers' lines of view clear. The locomotive were held in high regard by crews who found them sure-footed and more user-friendly than other motive power. They were capable machines. Their rated hauling tonnage was increased by several times over the years. The post-war increases by the price of coal and labor, along with the advent of efficient and cost-effective diesel-electric power, spelled the end of their operational lives. Nonetheless, they were among the last steam locomotives withdrawn from service on the Union Pacific. The last revenue train hauled by the big boy ended its early run in the morning of July 21st, 1959. Most were stored in operation until 1961 and remained in operational condition at Green River, Wyoming until 1962. Their duties were assumed by diesel locomotive and gas turbine electric locomotives. 2019, the locomotive completed the restoration of number 4014 and placed it in excursion service. The locomotive was sent on tour to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the completion of the first transcontinental railroad. On April 27, 1953, locomotive number 4005 was pulling a freight train through southern Wyoming when it jumped to switch track at 50 miles an hour, throwing the engine onto its left side and derailing the tender and the engine and tender in the first 18 cars of its 62-car train. The engineer and firemen were killed on impact. The brakeman died of severe burns in a hospital a few days later. The tender destroyed the cab of the locomotive, and the loads from the 18 derailed cars were scattered. Despite the relatively heavy damage, the locomotive was repaired by Union Pacific in its Cheyenne facility, returned to service until 1962. On May 16, 2019, number 4014 partially derailed with two axles from one set of the driving wheels falling into the gauge while entering the yard at Rawlins, Wyoming. The derailed drive wheels were returned to the rails within 3 hours. Of the original 25 locomotives, 17 were scrapped, 7 are on static display. 2 of these are displayed indoors, while the other 5 are displayed outdoors without protection from the elements. An 8th Union Pacific number 4014 has been rebuilt to operating condition by Union Pacific as part of its steam program. And now it's time for the cab tour. So right here we have the Johnson bar, a reverser, have the sludge remover, the sander, smokestack hood. That was, give me a minute. Oh. That I didn't know was a thing. That's really cool, actually. Okay. The independent brake, the automatic brake. Now, even though it's called automatic, it just means the train behind us. Anyways, we have the locomotive emergency brake cylinder pressure control, bell, first service position cock, the live injector, the cylinder cocks, the reverse gear steam, brake alerts, the rail washer, water gauges, throttle, whistle cord, the blower cock shut off, the blow off, have 4 water gauges, water sight glass blow down, water column blow down, firebox. This is coal burning 4014, okay. here we have the stoker jets, and the stoker operating valve, stoker booster, stoker immediate, intermediate jets, exhaust steam injector, the exhaust steam injector water regulator, and ash pans, blower, steam heat. They're blowing down the... Alright. Now it's time for a nice 30 minutes of a running session. Completely off after this. Okay. There we go. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of All About Steam. I'll catch you in the next one. Next episode will be the Union Pacific FEF class. Alrighty, y'all. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.